InvestorIdeas.com podcast. Good afternoon and welcome to another InvestorIdeas.com podcast following cannabis news, stocks to watch, as well as insights from thought leaders and experts. Today's podcast features an interview with Jason Spatafora, also known as the Wolf of Weed Street, where we discuss the MJ BizCon 2018, as well as the future of the cannabis industry.
Here with Jason Spatafora, also known as the Wolf of Weed Street. Jason, you're no stranger to this conference. You've been here before. How does this year compare to the other years, and what's the biggest difference?
It's a lot like the marijuana industry. It's like the macro view, the micro view. Every year it's doubled. So the first time I went to the Rio, I was like, wow, this is enormous. Second year, they took down a wall. It got even bigger. Third year, they moved it to here. And I was just like, oh my God, this is double last year. I mean, first 2 years I came here, I'd walk around. People would say, oh, it's the wolf.
Exactly.
And I'd see a lot of people that I know in the industry. Here it's
a sea of people,
a sea of unknowns, which is good. I mean, it's not good for ego, but it's exciting to see, and I look at it like this: the more people that don't know who I am, the better. Well, not initially,
to a certain extent,
to a certain extent, but if they're coming here and this is like their first, conference and first time being anywhere near the industry, eventually they'll come to me, Eventually they'll find me because they know that the barrier, everybody wants to do a CBD company. They want to buy a grow. They want to own a dispensary.
They want a lifestyle brand and a vertically integrated company.
They want to sell vaporizers. And then they come here. They come here all idealistic. Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But then they realize that the barrier to entry is just, it's tough.
Yeah.
And the easiest way to get in on the action, and get that instant gratification that you want is to get yourself into the public markets.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously that's your background, is you've been the early adopter of investing in more the pink sheet side of the cannabis industry. And obviously now those stocks are going up and the stocks are getting bigger and they're trading on larger exchanges.
Yeah.
What's some of the biggest factors you look at for a successful company, especially in the U.S.? Is it focused mainly on IP, or is it more the company structure or longevity?
It's funny. So to your point, when I first started, I had no clue what I was doing. And a lot of people think, oh, where'd you go to business school? And I'm more like Van Wilder. I was a double major, English and creative writing, and I just kind of fell into this. And, so the first company I invested in, I did payment processing. And I was like, oh, great. Put $500 in, never bought a penny stock in my life. It went up 50%, and then 2 days later it tanked, and I was like, what the hell just happened? So initially it was, okay, there's something to this volatility, but I need to look at this differently, and so I focused on the agricultural side, the lights, and the picks and shovels, as everybody says, you hear a million times a year. Initially it was just catching the momentum, finding companies that were like selling vaporizers and had a stock price of like half a penny, and were doing more in revenue than the company that was $150 million market cap. And, that is how I just kind of grew, and I made some good money, and I lost a lot of money. And it wasn't until like the first bubble burst, which was April 2014, that I realized that I didn't know anything. So, you have to go back, and especially if you're looking at companies in the United States, the rules from companies in the U.S. versus Canada are completely different.
Yeah.
It's convertible debt, like toxic debt. Canada's different because, it's a lot of check swaps, it's a lot of like free paper or options, but at least they pay for it. U.S. is a crapshoot. So kind of look at, I mean, the first thing I do, or what I would do when I first started investing was, I would Google the CEO's name and type fraud next to it, or scam. I'd look at the companies that he did before, if any. What was the status of them? You know, like, did this guy, like, have 4 shells before and they were all sucked? Now it's, how is everybody going to fit into the global cannabis market? You know, I look at the Canadian market as there's a lot of great companies, but there's also a lot of baby seals. And what I mean by baby seals are, they're all going to get clubbed. So if they're trying to get a license and they're waiting for 2 years and they're just basically raising money to try and get to that point, they're dead in the water. Unless you have some sort of IP, you're frugal with your money, you're not trying to come out at an insane valuation, you'll be okay. So I think that what we're going to see is a lot of these smaller companies, these baby seals, if they're smart, they get together and they try and, just plant smaller flags, but cast a wider net together, share costs and stuff like that, because at the end of the day, in a couple of years, they're not going to be able to compete with the Auroras, the Canopies, the Afras of the world, because they're just going to be able to beat them down on price. And if, let's say, the U.S. market opens up, then they're all dead, because it's going to be companies like that are going to come and have partnerships with the U.S. companies.
Yeah, in that same line of thought, I was listening to Terry Booth from Aurora speak this morning, and he mentioned almost that exact same thing, which is that the late-stage applicants right now, he's basically said, good luck, but you have a real challenge ahead of you, especially if you're a Canadian company trying to get into the Canadian market. Yeah. Whereas in the alternative, he said, because there is so much IP coming out of the U.S., that a lot of those companies are actually looking to try and trade on the Canadian markets, and he said that that's maybe where the future for a lot of them could be before federal legalization in the U.S. ever comes about, that those smaller companies in the U.S. actually stand a better chance in Canada than the Canadian companies. Would you agree with that to some point? Or
no, I would agree, 100%. Well, I mean, also, it's a game of numbers.
Yeah.
It's population.
Yeah, exactly. One company in California has more revenue than some companies in, multiple provinces in Canada because population density is in their favor.
I mean, and look, I know private companies in the United States that are doing more in revenue than any LP out there, or than the top 3 LPs out there.
Obviously, you've mentioned, and a lot of people have mentioned, that this is growing, and you can look here today, there's too many businesses to count in this forum today, and I'd like to know, just because you started out really giving almost investment advice or letting people know what you're investing in, and that's how you sort of started your success. Is it really difficult, or what are the biggest difficulties you find trying to educate a new investor into the cannabis space today? What is the biggest gaps you're finding in their knowledge?
That they're just taking somebody's word on Twitter and firing at something blindly. You can do that, and a lot of people did that in 2014. Like anything I tweeted or talked about, they would just buy.
Yeah.
That's dangerous. One, I don't want that kind of power. So, like, I tweeted about TrueLeaf, and I didn't put the .c on it, and there was a pink company called True Light in the United States, and it was like 20 cents that day, and it ran to $2.68. And even after, I'm like, this isn't True Leaf. People were still buying it. That's dangerous. And some people bought it, they were like, I crushed it. And then they put their money in True Leaf, but...
An accidental win for a few people?
Accidental, like 500% win for a bunch of people, which is great, but that's not the industry. The biggest gap is, the lack of patience and the lack of understanding, that people don't want to take the time to paper trade and get a sense of it. I tell any new investor, I'm like, paper trade for like a month, and when you do come in, pick 3 companies and set a bid, low, and you have to be greedy about your entries and conservative with your exits. because at the drop of a hat, it could all go sideways.
So would you say it's changing more to long game versus short game investing now in this market?
Right now, we have a trader's market. It's and I think that's actually putting a lot of pressure on the companies. It would put pressure on companies anyway. But then when there's other variables like the bigger markets in general, it's going to pull it down. Everybody loves cannabis because the returns can be astronomical. But just as they skyrocket, when there's bad news in the global markets and we're tethered to the SPY or the Dow, we go down twice as fast because the smart money, it's like, well, I made 500% here, I made 100% here, I can take that, So they're using cannabis as almost their bank.
Yeah, I would say that seems to be the trend. I know even a big thing with Canada legalizing in October, everyone thought maybe this might be beneficial.
Not everybody.
Some people might at least speculated, and it definitely went in the direction that I think the smart money knew it was going to go, which is a huge drop for that first couple of weeks.
Well, did you see by chance the calendar that I tweeted?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
So if you're listening, go to Twitter, go to the search bar, type in @Wolf of Weed Street, and then just write calendar next to it. And it should be one of the top. So October 4th, I was on vacation, and I was, getting a lot of questions about legalization. I go, look, I'm just going to make you a calendar of what's going to happen. And I highlighted, so the 16th, it was green in the morning, and then it fades to yellow, which means it's going down. Then Tuesday, red, 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 red. And then Monday, it was supposed to go from yellow to green. And to a T, it did that. So people were getting out, like myself. I look at all these political events or legislative catalysts as these are sell the news events. People said the same thing to me about C45. You're wrong, you're wrong. I gave them 45 days notice. I posted what days the market was going to come down, and it comes down because guys like me are smart. This is our chance to exit, and we know that the new people that don't take the time are just going to be firing at it. Understand, you don't buy the news, you sell the news, and it's so true in cannabis. So the only thing that happened was on October 22nd, that week, when everything was looking great and going to the calendar according to plan, the Dow and the SPY just pooped themselves.
Yeah, well, it's a big thing. The cannabis industry is still very volatile market-wise.
Yeah.
What would you say are your big expectations maybe for the next year or so in the cannabis space, or what do you think is going to be the biggest potential areas for cannabis companies?
Well, I think there's going to be a shift, and I've been saying this since prior to legalization in Canada. There's going to be a shift to the United States. We're seeing that. I think the problem with this shift that's going on is these companies, when they were doing their raises and everything, the market was red hot, and they came out at silly valuations, and I mean, really, that's what it's going to be. It's like now for Canada, it's going to show me the numbers. Who is managing costs, and who's set up for the global market in best position. Yeah, I mean, look, a beverage deal, a tobacco deal, or a pharma deal would be great right now. But if that's what you're waiting for, you could be disappointed. And
still a year away, potentially, if not longer.
I mean, look, the Constellation deal with Canopy took a year to close.
Yeah.
That wasn't overnight.
No, and I mean, even still, as much as that investment is important, still nothing in the works yet. There's still nothing no products to market, nothing that's actually going to come out of that until, again, another year, possibly two.
I haven't seen a can of Tweed beer anywhere, So, I mean, look, it's like anything. It depends on your time horizon. Are you willing to wait? But, you could mitigate your risk by just having an understanding of the movement in general of the space. So historically it's been October to March. I always tell people be out by the Ides of March, which is March 15th. And like a clock every year, it drops because March 15th comes, people realize there's a month left and then they have to pay taxes, and nobody accounted for all the money that they make, and they have to blow out of positions, the market gets really soft. So, and then you buy in the summer on the lows. The model kind of changed this year with the Constellation deal coming in August. So it sped things up, so, and trade around financings, understand when paper is going to come out. And take profit. That's it.
Yeah, I think that's good advice to give anyone. Just one final thought. Obviously, there's a lot of people coming here trying to get into this space. Would you say that it's more important to focus on the actual company financials and the actual paper element of the companies rather than the actual hype components? For instance, intellectual property, for instance, we have a new technology, we've got this new license.
Yeah, don't buy the pie in the sky, is what they're doing scalable, or is somebody trying to make like a hemp-powered hoverboard, which, yes, everybody would want one, but can it really be done? What kind of regulatory issues are they going to have? Like the weed breathalyzer. I always thought that was the dumbest idea, because if I got pulled over and somebody made me blow like a weed breathalyzer, I would just fight it, because it's a technology that's so new, it's not proven. I've never seen a working model.
And they're too expensive to make in the first place.
Exactly.
Perfect. Well, it was nice chatting with you, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
That's all for today's podcast. Podcast is now a certified word trademark on the blockchain through Cognate Incorporated's CM certification. InvestorIdeas.com podcasts are also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and TuneIn. If you'd like to be a guest or sponsor of this podcast, please contact InvestorIdeas.com. Investor Ideas reminds all listeners to read our disclaimers and disclosures on the InvestorIdeas.com website, and this podcast is not an endorsement to buy products or services or securities. Investors are reminded that all investments involve risk and possible loss of investment. Investor Ideas does not condone the use of cannabis except where permissible by law. Our site does not possess, distribute, or sell cannabis products.